Hello and welcome to Just Therapist Things, where we talk all things therapy. My name is Jordan and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist from sunny California. I currently work at a private practice where we focus on child anxiety reduction, and I also work for a nonprofit cancer support organization. Thanks for listening. Hi all, this is the second episode in my series of Diagnosing, where I, a licensed marriage and family therapist, analyze and, if necessary, diagnose fictional characters from TV and movies. I will also have audio of scenes to show presenting problems. Disclaimer, this podcast episode is just for entertainment purposes, not meant to be used to diagnose and treat real people. Overdiagnosing is a big issue, so I'm only analyzing and diagnosing based on how the character presents on television or in a movie, and if it warrants a diagnosis in my professional opinion. Also, trigger warning, in this episode I discuss difficult subject material such as violence, assault, stalking, and harassment. Listen at your discretion. In today's episode, I will be diagnosing Martha from Baby Reindeer. Baby Reindeer is wild, you guys. It is disturbing, thought-provoking, intense, just so much. Truly watch at your own discretion as it addresses tough topics, as I said, like stalking, physical and sexual assault, psychological issues, and substance abuse. You can watch Baby Reindeer on Netflix, and it is a 7-episode limited series that truly takes you on a psychological journey. This show is incredibly fascinating because it is actually allegedly a true story, and the man who experienced this story directed the show and also plays himself in it. So Richard Godd is the man behind it all. And he says in an interview, quote, "Stalking on television tends to be very sexed up. It has a mystique. It's somebody in a dark alleyway. It's somebody who's really sexy, who's very normal, but then they go strange bit by bit." God continues, "But stalking is a mental illness. I really wanted to show the layers of stalking with a human quality I hadn't seen on television before. It's a stalker story turned on its head. It takes a trope and turns it on its head." End quote. Richard is totally right about this. This show not only portrays stalking in a never-before-seen way, but it also touches on other nuances with stalking, as well as other psychological challenges, which I will get into. This show has really taken the internet by a storm because of all of this, and also because it is controversial in what actually happened and if this actually is based on a true story. The real-life Martha outed herself as someone named FIONA HARVEY, and she first revealed herself in an interview by Piers Morgan, where she claimed that she was the person behind Martha and that all of the allegations made in the show were false. She says that she believes that Richard Godd is severely mentally ill, has fabricated this entire narrative, and is defaming her for his own fame. She recently filed a lawsuit against Netflix seeking at least $170 million in damages, claiming that they did not protect her identity and did not fact-check this story before claiming it to be based on a true story. I have linked Fiona's interview as well as a Richard Godd interview in the episode notes. It is crucial to note that in this podcast episode, I am not diagnosing the actual human, FIONA HARVEY, who seemingly inspired the character Martha, but I am diagnosing Martha as she is portrayed in the show Baby Reindeer. So the show starts out with struggling comedian Donnie, who depicts real-life Richard Godd, and he is working in a bar, living with his ex's mom, just really not thriving in life. One day, a woman named Martha comes into the bar, and she looks pretty down. Donnie gives her a cup of tea on the house to make her feel better, and they begin talking. Donnie and Martha develop a little banter, and she proceeds to come into the bar every day to hang out with Donnie. She tells Donnie that she is a wealthy lawyer, she has big name clients, but she weirdly cannot afford to pay for her own tea. Donnie becomes suspicious if she is telling him lies, but he continues to engage with her. Martha then eventually starts to call Donnie pet names such as baby reindeer, gets his email address, kind of starts being flirty with him, and this is really where the harassment begins. Martha begins to send Donnie hundreds of emails a day that begin to take on a sexual nature, and she also strangely misspells a lot of words in the emails, which I will discuss more in the diagnosis. But while she is doing this, sending him emails, she continues to come into the bar, and although Donnie is disturbed by the amount of emails from her, he kind of keeps engaging in this flirty behavior, which only further provokes Martha to continue to harass him. Here's an audio of their flirty behavior.
What's your special dish?
Beef curtains.
You're utterly mad, aren't you? Oh.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I'd want to know what people were thinking, rather than just guessing all the time.
What? Are you worried people think bad of you or something?
No. I'm worried they don't think about me at all.
Mine's weird.
I expect nothing less.
Do you ever, want to unzip people and climb inside them?
Can't say it's an impulse I've had very often, no.
I wish humans had a chin zip, one that would open all the way to their bellies. I just unzip them and tuck myself away.
Is this you asking me for my skin suit?
Oh, yes. I'd wear you like a onesie. Oh my God. Snuggle away inside you all winter. That'd be nice. I'd miss biscuits, though.
Well, I tell you what. Give me a list of the ones you like. And every now and again, when nobody's looking, I'll unzip my chin and pop some biscuits inside for you. How does that sound?
Best of both worlds. My God. Oh my God. The tongue on you.
As you can hear in this scene, Martha and Donnie are clearly having a very disturbing conversation that is weirdly sexual and flirty. And if you haven't seen the show, during this moment, Martha is actually hugging Donnie, leaning her head on his shoulder, and they are smiling at each other. This is kind of the first glimpse that something is a little off about Donnie, too. Martha continues to say really strange things to Donnie, most of a sexual nature. She shows up at his work at odd hours and continues to just send him an extreme amount of emails regularly. Martha somehow, I can't exactly remember how, convinces Donnie to go out to coffee with her, and this is where Donnie sees that she is really disturbed. At one point during the coffee meeting, Martha grabs Donnie's hand very aggressively and does not let go. Donnie asks her to please let go of his hand and asks her multiple times, but she does not, and she ends up yelling in the cafe, creating a scene. Here is an audio of that moment.
Who was it?
Martha, can you let go of my hand now, please?
I want names.
Martha, please.
Names.
Martha, please.
Names.
Martha, please, let go.
Don't you dare!
As you can hear, Martha seems to be yelling about Donnie being with other women and is very, very agitated. Donnie's suspicion of Martha grows following this public outburst, and he follows her home from the cafe only to find that, as he suspected, she is definitely not a wealthy lawyer, but lives in a cluttered apartment seemingly underneath a freeway overpass, just to paint you a picture. Donnie doesn't do a great job at sneaking around, and Martha actually sees him outside her house, only to believe then that him following her home was a sign that he likes her and wants to be with her. The next strange encounter is when Martha shows up at Donnie's comedy night and heckles him from the crowd, causing a big disturbance. Following the show, she confesses her feelings towards Donnie, and he tries to reject her in a nice yet kind of strange way, but she sends him a Facebook friend request later that night, clearly not really taking the hint. Who knows why, but he accepts her friend request and also Googles her and finds out that she has been accused of stalking behavior previously. So after they become friends on Facebook, Martha's stalking behavior intensifies, especially when she sees old Facebook pictures of him and his ex-girlfriend, and also when she finds out that Donnie is currently dating a transgender woman named Terry. Martha begins to send continuous aggressive and harassing Facebook and email messages to Donnie, to his ex-girlfriend, and at one point she actually sexually harasses him when she followed him on his walk home. And so that is a very intense moment. So discretion if you are watching that. But Martha discovers where Donnie lives, and she then proceeds to sit at a bus stop outside of his house in a seemingly catatonic state for hours and days on end. And Donnie looks out his window, all hours of the day and just sees her sitting there. He tries to avoid her at first, but then he actually sees that she's in this catatonic state and he tries to talk to her. At first to tell her to leave, but then he begins to feel sorry for her, seeing that she is clearly very mentally disturbed. Here is an audio clip of Donnie stalking Facebook and Google and finding out that Martha has been a convicted stalker previously.
I sat there for hours taking it all in, piecing together her whole timeline. Her graduate job, how she got fired for inappropriate behavior with the boss, how she started hanging around outside his house, then falsely reporting him to the police for abusing his disabled child. This other time she attacked his mother in the street, a 4.5-year prison sentence.
Fast forward, and Martha physically assaults Donnie's current girlfriend, Terry, and his ex-girlfriend. She throws acid in her face. And so Donnie finally reports this to the police because she's not only harassing him at this point, but she's harassing people in his life. So the police take this case seriously, and Martha actually complies with their request for no contact with Donnie. But then Donnie gets kind of weird, and he actually starts obsessing over Martha in a sexual way. And this part was very, very shocking, especially knowing that this is based on a true story and knowing that it's the true story of the man who directed and produced this show. It's just very, very odd. And, I definitely want to do some diagnosing and analyzing of Richard God in a future episode, but it becomes very, very strange. Later in the episodes, Martha then physically assaults Donnie, threatens his parents, and continues to send disturbing messages to him. Donnie again reports her to the police, and she is arrested and sentenced to 9 months in prison. So yeah, wild. A lot happens. Martha and Donnie both clearly have some serious issues, but let's diagnose Martha. After careful research and consideration, I am diagnosing Martha with, just kidding, rule outs first. So I definitely think that Martha has some sort of personality disorder. And so my first rule out is histrionic personality disorder. I thought that this could fit Martha because Histrionic personality disorder is characterized by unstable emotions, distorted self-image, overwhelming desire to be noticed. Check, check, check for Martha. People with histrionic personality disorder also talk dramatically with strong opinions, and they think relationships are closer than they are. So at this point, this sounds like this could absolutely be her diagnosis. However, I think that something else fits her better, especially because with histrionic personality disorder, it's really that attention-seeking behavior, and people that are highly dramatic, impulsive, and they feel uncomfortable when they're not the center of attention. So their goal is to be the center of attention. And I don't think that that is really Martha, because I think that what she is trying to do is she is trying to gain love from Donnie. And she does have unstable emotions and talk dramatically, and she thinks that the relationship with Donnie is closer than it actually is, but she is not trying to just seek attention, if that makes sense. Another rule out is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is categorized by hallucinations, delusions, and losing touch with reality. So Martha actually does not have hallucinations, which are seeing things or hearing voices, but she does have delusions where she thinks that Donnie is in love with her, and she believes a lot of her own fabrications. So this is an example of definitely losing touch with reality. So what really made me consider a schizophrenia diagnosis is the fact that she does have delusions and she believes her own fabrications, but also because of the catatonic moment where she was sitting on the bus stop and she was just not moving, not speaking, not doing anything, just incredibly just still. Catatonia is defined as a state in which someone is awake but does not seem to respond to other people and their environment. So their alertness is just non-existent. Their speech, behavior, movement is just not normal because they're just completely still and unaffected by stimuli. And catatonia can have a number of different causes, which I will talk about in a little bit, but I did consider it because it is very active with schizophrenia. Aside from the delusions and catatonic state, there aren't really any other specifiers that can diagnose Martha with a schizophrenia disorder, because something else that is key in schizophrenia is that there is disorganized speech or thinking. So like word salad, words don't make sense. And that does happen in Martha's emails, but not really in her speech. There is also disorganized or unusual motor behavior. So being childlike or silly, being agitated for no reason. It's difficult to do tasks. So basically movement in ways that is not appropriate to social settings. And while Martha does exhibit that in some ways where she, barges into the bar or she, plays tag with Donnie, things like that, then I think that there's another reason for why that was happening, and it's not because she is schizophrenic. Something else about schizophrenia is that people who have this diagnosis are usually monotone, not able to feel pleasure, socially withdrawn, and they lose interest in everyday activities, which does not seem like that is what Martha was experiencing. Something else that I ruled out that people on the internet really have considered, and some people really think she has this diagnosis, but that is bipolar 1 disorder, manic type with psychotic features. So bipolar 1 disorder is categorized by mania and depression together. So mania is a feeling of euphoria, irritability, unusually high energy levels, racing thoughts, and the urge to keep talking. Depression is sadness, hopelessness, fatigue, and disinterest in usual activities, also finding it difficult to concentrate. Martha's incessant emailing and contacting Donnie is definitely a sign of what a person experiencing mania could do. So I think that that's why a lot of people think that this could be a diagnosis, but I do think that maybe there's another explanation for this. I think a big reason why people on the internet did consider bipolar 1 disorder is because it is actually not unusual for people living with bipolar disorder to have some symptoms of psychosis, and having these episodes of psychosis during the mania or during the depression. And these episodes can include delusions, hallucinations, lack of awareness of reality, and also catatonia. But the reason why I am ruling this out as not a diagnosis for Martha is because Martha does not exhibit episodes of mania and depression. It really does seem like a consistent personality or mood disorder. And I don't think that what she is exhibiting are consistent with typical manic ways. It really is just how she is and how she reacts, and is typical of more of a personality disorder rather than episodes of extreme talking and thoughts racing and things like that. She also doesn't really have feelings of extreme euphoria, super high energy levels, and the depression episodes are not really there as well, other than the catatonia, but that can be explained by other disorders. Lastly, this is a diagnosis that I was super close to actually diagnosing Martha with, and I did a lot of research on this, and it was interesting to me how online people who have analyzed this show, they actually have not considered this diagnosis, which was kind of surprising to me. But this diagnosis is schizoaffective disorder with psychotic features. So this diagnosis is pretty much just an in-between of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, where people have a mix of mania or hypomania, depression, and psychosis symptoms. And it is challenging to distinguish between schizoaffective disorder and bipolar disorder and schizophrenia a lot of the time, because it is very, very similar. As I said, it's kind of an in-between. So I was close to diagnosing her with that just because it can be with hypomania. It is kind of a more not extreme mania and kind of a more stable mood disorder. So that could have been it. But I did rule this out just based on what I said about bipolar disorder and schizophrenia already. So finally, what I am diagnosing Martha from Baby Reindeer with is borderline personality disorder with psychotic features and erotomania. So first, borderline personality disorder is the inability to control emotions, big emotional swings, all or nothing thinking, extreme attachment, and emotional dependence. So yes, that is all Martha. Also with borderline personality disorder, there is splitting, which is idealizing someone or something and then devaluing that someone or something. So that kind of goes along with the all or nothing thinking. And that also is represented in how Martha loves Donnie and is obsessed with him and stalking him and saying nice things to him. And then she hates him and heckles him at his comedy shows and says terrible things to him. With this, Martha also exhibits intense rage and rapidly shifting mood. Here is an audio of her rage towards Donnie.
Hello?
I wasn't going to speak to you ever again, but I've just been putting down the basics regarding what you said on stage. See, do your parents know about all that in the video, yeah? The shirt lifting and the guy's cock half hanging out of you. I mean, should I tell them? Probably fair to know their son's an ugly little bum boy. It's the least you deserve for all those things you said about me. I cannot express how furious I am about the way you shafted me.
And just like that, at the worst possible time during the most important moment of my professional life, Martha got my number. How the fuck could I let her get my number?
Research has shown that borderline personality disorder likely stems from childhood traumas of abandonment or perceived abandonment. And while we don't know exactly what went on in Martha's childhood, we do know that her parents fought a lot and that she would feel lonely quite often. So this could be a precursor for why she is experiencing borderline personality disorder currently. So now what about the misspelling in emails? Well, I found a really interesting article on Katie Couric Media where Katie Couric interviews therapist Lori Gottlieb, who is a pretty famous and well-known therapist. And this is what Lori Gottlieb says about the misspelling in the emails. So she says, quote, Martha would go into these states of intense dysregulation, including angry outbursts and extreme mood swings. When a person is dysregulated, they become completely out of control and are guided by more primitive parts of the brain. The prefrontal cortex, which regulates our executive functioning, goes offline when the primitive parts of the brain take over. The simplest way to put it is that Martha would go into states of intense overwhelm in which she wasn't able to think clearly, emotionally, or cognitively, end quote. So this is a great description of how what Martha is dealing with, her personality disorders, her mood swings, all of that, contributes to why there's misspelling in all the emails, which was something that a lot of viewers who are watching the show were confused about. So that is my explanation of borderline personality disorder. And now let's go to erotomania. So erotomania is a subtype of delusional disorder. And because it is a subtype of delusional disorder, this explains Martha's delusional thinking that Donnie is in love with her and that they're in a relationship and her believing her own fabrication. So just remember that erotomania is a subtype of a delusional disorder. And here is an audio that shows Martha believing her own delusions and Donnie actually calling her out for it.
You, Martha, you're what's wrong.
What can I do to help the reindeer? What do you need?
Space.
Space? From me? From us?
Oh, what are you talking about? There is no us. Fucking hell. I can say anything to you, can't I? And you'll just pick and choose the bits you want to hear. I mean, look at you. Staring at me like...
Like what?
I mean... You believe it, don't you?
So what exactly is erotomania? Well, erotomania is when you think that someone is in love with you, but they are not. And this could be someone famous or an actor, someone you see on television. And the person with erotomania can't accept facts that prove otherwise. They could also think that they are in a relationship with that person. Common traits of people with erotomania include low self-esteem, a feeling of rejection or loneliness, social isolation, trouble seeing others' point of view, and it is a little bit more common in women than men, and it typically could happen anywhere from puberty to midlife. So that is my analysis of why I believe that Martha is suffering from borderline personality disorder and erotomania. Treatment is tough for personality disorders because sometimes the person may not see that there is a problem and may not want to get treatment. However, treatment recommendations include talk therapy, DBT, CBT, which will all help to manage emotions, handle distress, address relationship issues and negative thoughts, and encourage coping skills. Medications can also be useful for personality disorders and delusional disorders, and maybe in the form of antidepressants, antipsychotics, or mood stabilizers. For erotomania specifically, antipsychotics are a useful first line of treatment to manage the delusions. After watching this wild limited series that may or may not be a true story, who really knows, I, as well as most people, I think, are left with much confusion and utter shock. This portrayal was intense. A lot goes on. I hope that neither party of real-life Donnie or Martha actually experienced all that went on in this series, and I hope that, if needed, they get the mental health support and treatment to heal their traumas. I would love to hear what you think of this series and my analysis, and what do you think the truth really is?
If anyone listening is struggling with their mental health, please call 988 or 911 to get help, reach out to loved ones, and know that you are not alone. Thank you for listening to Just Therapist Things, and I will talk to you soon.